Hello, I'm Greg Levine. I'm managing editor at Firedog Lake, and this is the inaugural edition of the Party Line for the weekend of January 22nd, 2011. And there are lots of things we could be talking about going into the weekend. Obviously, we're still less than 2 weeks removed from the tragedies in Tucson. And I, for one, am still waiting for real leadership on gun control, or at least ammunition control. There is some movement towards restricting the size of extended clips. You see Carolyn McCarthy in the House, Frank Lautenberg in the Senate talking about it, but there's still really an incredible silence from people higher up in the party. Leadership, I think, on both sides, would rather this just went away. And that's very sad. Sad because this tragedy will not be used to any advantage for our society in the long run. We could also, of course, be talking about the departure 2 years hence of Joe Lieberman, who announced he will not be running for re-election to the Senate in 2012. And while that's good news, it still means we have 2 years of Joe Lieberman. But I think we all know how most of us in this community feel about that. I just would like to sum it up with a line I heard the other day in an NPR piece about his retirement, which is, the people who will miss Joe Lieberman most are Connecticut's defense contractors. I think that says pretty much all you need to know. What I really want to talk about today, and what's striking to me, is that it was on Thursday, the 20th of January, and that meant that it was the second anniversary of the inauguration of Barack Obama. And what was amazing to me was that I didn't really realize this till kind of late in the day. And, you know, I'm not living in a vacuum here. I'm looking around the internet. I'm listening to various radio news shows. If I'm feeling masochistic, I'll turn on television news. Lots of information coming in, and none of it talking about the second anniversary of the inauguration. I didn't realize it until I saw a picture later in the day, taken a while back, that happened to have a plaque in it that commemorated the date of January 20th, 2009. And then it struck me. I was there, kind of, in Washington. I won't get into that. I tried to go see the inauguration. There are stories on the internet about that. But what I want to talk about is, why didn't we hear more today, or Thursday, about this? And I think the problem is that it's very hard to talk about what's changed in the last 2 years. I think for most people in America, they still see that unemployment is high. They still feel like the banks are getting a break and they're not. They still feel unstable in their jobs. They still feel like healthcare costs are going up, insurance costs are going up. They're not sure what they can afford in the future. They don't see any kind of leadership from the top that's going to change a lot of this. Now, I want to say right off that I never thought of Barack Obama as a progressive. I never thought of him as a liberal. But what I did think about Barack Obama was that he was an intelligent man, that he was a curious man, and that he was educable. And that perhaps, just perhaps, like when Franklin Delano Roosevelt came into the White House, not nearly as liberal as we think of him today, he sat down, looked at what was happening to the country, looked at the situation at hand, and had people in his cabinet who had strong voices that were to the left of him, and he listened to those people. And then he famously said, "I know what you want me to do, now make me do it." I can't imagine Barack Obama having the same conversation. I had hoped back in 2009 that would happen, but if you think about who was actually on the cabinet, there was nobody to really say the things that needed to be said to him, or at least not people with strong enough voice or close enough to the inside track who were going to say that. And you now also get the feeling that as a leader, Obama was either comfortable with the status quo or uncomfortable with his ability to change it. And that's very sad, because if you were to talk about what to me is the greatest missed opportunity or the greatest sin of the last 2 years, it would be that by coming in with a too small stimulus package, with too much emphasis on tax cuts, and by essentially signaling to everybody that the bankers weren't going to be taken to task for what happened at the end of the Bush administration, the financial collapse, that nothing really was going to be done about the looming foreclosure crisis, that there was no organized agenda to preserve manufacturing in the United States, that jobs would be created on a piecemeal basis. By communicating that, bankers, I got your back, American people, I hope for the best. He created the space for the rise of the Tea Party movement and the kind of ugly populism that dominated a large part of the last 2 years and frankly was used as an excuse for a large part of the last 2 years as to why things weren't getting done. I happened to catch a piece of the Ed Show on Thursday night, and I heard Ed Schultz say the next 2 years for the Obama administration are all about messaging. And I just had to shake my head. Honestly, I think the next 2 years are about getting something done. I mean, that is, if the president wants to be reelected, the next 2 years need to be about doing things, not talking about them. If you go out there and you say to America, look at all we've done, but they don't see it in their own lives. If you go out there and you say, we passed this incredible health reform package, but people still see their insurance rates going up double-digit percentages. They still see their pharmaceuticals going up double-digit percentages. They still see the cost of the visit to the doctor being more expensive, their co-pays going up, their deductibles going up, and you tell them, hey, we did what we could for you, they're not going to feel very good about that. Or you tout your financial regulation and reform package, but people still see bankers getting giant bonuses, and they still see a foreclosure crisis, and they still see friends looking at upside-down mortgages, or perhaps themselves, and they still see that their own financial situation is highly unstable. Perhaps they're out of a job. Perhaps they're looking at a future where they might be out of a job very soon. And telling them that you passed this incredible financial reform bill really doesn't make things any better. You can actually make things worse by being all about the messaging. I think there would be an incredible disconnect. And if you want to lose the 2012 election, then make the next 2 years all about messaging. If you want to win, let's make the next 2 years about getting something done. And that's some of what I'll be talking about this weekend. Here at Firedog Lake on Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern, we're going to have Mark Hertsgaard in to talk about his book, Hot, Living Through the Next 50 Years on Earth. And on Sunday, also at 5, our very own Teddy Partridge will be chatting with Tracy Baim, who wrote a book called Obama and the Gays, A Political Marriage. I look forward to both of those. Hope you will too. Join us. If not, I'll see you next week here on The Party Line. Thanks.